Gaurang Shah, Executive Vice President of Product and Engineering for the Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa, delivered his presentation on the future of payments and the next economy and how innovations will reshape commerce. We caught up with him to get some key insights to this and key trends that are shaping the payments landscape.
Yeah, see, the biggest thing that has happened in the last 10 years is we are digitizing everything. And that got accelerated many times over with the pandemic because that was a need in the market. What it's doing is generating unprecedented amount of data. And probably data is the underlying thing that is changing everything, that is powering everything that we are seeing. And like our CEO says, data is the new oil. Now, within the data, what it is impacting, the three broader areas we are seeing the biggest change happening, that we are seeing the trends in that, and that will reshape the way the commerce is done over the next decade. Those three areas is one is reimagining the money, and how do we exchange the value? Is it just and what's how do we extend the concept of a single currency into multi-token networks? The second one is about the new intelligence or a connected intelligence, and how the world of digital and physical and experiences within that are going to reshape to to enable an consumer experience which is very intuitive, seamless, and very heavily data driven, what we call hyper personalization.
Gaurang, you mentioned this and touched on it a bit before, the issue around sustainability, but perhaps any further thoughts that you'd like to add? Just in terms of the fact that everything in life right now is increasingly reminding us of the need to practice sustainable business. And as I said, you mentioned this, that it does, in a sense, cross over to the new economy that you mentioned. So it goes without say. I mean, sustainability is the core of everything that we'll be doing now and in future.
So we have a slogan in Mastercard which is doing well by doing good. And it's not a slogan on our presentation. It's taken time, but it's there in our fabric how we operate. And it's coming from a principle that consumers value, and consumers are a lot more conscious about their environment, about the social impacts around them. And they value interacting with those organizations which put these as a primary agenda, and that drives competitive advantage, that drives sustainability, and hence it's a win-win. In the past, it was seen as a corporate social responsibility, hence it wasn't a win-win. If I need to keep aside 2% of my revenue as a CSR, that's a win-lose, because I don't win anything because I'm just doing as a philanthropy. It is now getting into the fabric of doing business and the business models, because consumers are choosing to work within organizations which put this as their primary or within their narrative, and you're responsible for it. So that's what we are seeing, and the consumers are allowing us to make it a sustainable model, a win-win model. And that's what we are beginning to see. And the two biggest areas within that, which we as an organization are heavily focused on, one is about financial inclusion, bringing the underbanked consumers and SME. And you think about Africa, probably 80% of any market's GDPs are driven by the SME sector. How do we bring them into the financial inclusion, into what I call the credit inclusion? Because they want to sell more, but they can't sell more if they can't buy more, and they don't have money to buy more. And that's what we are trying to enable with this added data and digitization. It does two things: it gives more information, and second, it reduces the cost of operating at a lower ticket size, let's say credits. So that is one thing. Second, the environmental impact. And the number one thing that I have realized in the last 5 years, as we have been focusing about it, is we have to create the awareness. It's not that people do not want to do that. A lot of people are aware. Our one of the research shows that up to 15% of the consumers make choices in favor of the organizations which is environmental responsible versus who are not, and they make those conscious decisions. But the number one thing is, how do you create the consumer awareness of the impact that you have when you make certain decisions? Like I was giving you the example, if I go to the work on cycle versus I go to the work in a car versus a public transport like a train, I need to understand the impact it creates. If I'm not aware, I can't do much about it. So that is number one thing. How do you create awareness? And second, how do you allow and give people the tools to offset those carbon footprints? See, I don't see that in the next 5 to 10 years we will be in an environment where you can have you leave a zero carbon footprint in your day-to-day life. But where we want to get into, one, reduce it as much as possible, but lead to a net zero carbon emission. Meaning, if I do something and left some carbon footprint, what do I do to offset that and give back to the environment? So it is coming back from that, but the core and the heart of it is doing well by doing good and getting the ESG agenda within the business models. That's the only way to move forward.